Hello, my name is Eric Meltzer, and I'm a training specialist with the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions. In this video, I'll be going over how to navigate the QFR portal. The Quarterly Financial Report, or QFR, tells the DC government and the public how the ANC spent its funds. The ANC must submit a QFR to the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions, or the OANC, for review. After the OANC reviews the QFR, an allotment is issued. The due dates and the months included in the reporting period are as follows. Quarter 1 is due February 15th. Quarter 2 is due May 15th. Quarter 3 is due August 15th. And Quarter 4 is due November 15th. Approval of the QFRs is important because it releases future allotments for the ANC. So, review and approval of the Q1 report will release the Q3 allotment for the ANC. Before entering transactions, you will need the following items: the bank statements, the canceled checks, the checkbook and copies of voided checks, scanned and saved copies of the receipts, and copies of final approved minutes for all meetings in the quarter. If a grant was issued, you will need the grant application, the grant closeout report, the receipts for all purchases made with grant funds, and the minutes approving the grant. Now, let's take a look at the QFR portal. The address that you'll want to go to is qfr.oanc.dc.gov. From here, go ahead and enter in your email address and password. If you do not have the password or want to change the password, contact oancs@dc.gov and the QFR Portal Administrator will resolve any password issues. Now keep in mind that for this video, I am using an administrator account, so there may be more features and options available than what you have as commissioners. So now that we're logged in, we're going to go to the checking section on the left part of the website. From here, we'll see that there are 4 transaction types at the top of the page: checking, debit, fees, and receipts. Let's click on the check section. The check module is where transactions issued by check are added. Checks must be entered in the portal when they are written, not when they clear the bank. The checkbook, the canceled checks, and receipts should be available when entering transactions in the checking module. ANC Law 1-309.13 requires that checks be recorded in consecutive and chronological order. Therefore, checks are pre-numbered in the portal. The internal controls in the portal require that the most recent check is processed before any future checks can be written. In other words, you cannot skip a check. Here's what you need to complete a check. First, at the top of the check, you'll see that there's an option to select whether this is an approved budget expense. You can choose yes or no. This is a required field. ANC Law 1-309.13 requires all expenses to be approved in a public meeting. One method of approving the ANC expenses is through the annual budget. Another method is to approve an expense at a public meeting. If an expense is approved in the annual budget, answer yes. If an expense is not approved in the annual budget but was approved at a public meeting, you can answer no. Then indicate the date of the meeting when the expense was approved. Next, we have the date that the check was written. From here, we can enter in the date that the check was written. You can either type in a date or you can click on this blue calendar icon to the right and choose the date from the calendar. Let's choose today's date. Once the date is entered, the portal automatically sorts the transaction into the appropriate quarter. Because dates are a critical component of the portal, they cannot be changed once entered. The Quarterly Financial Report Administrator in the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions must approve date changes. If you need to make a date change, you can email oancs@dc.gov to request a date change. Next, we have pay to the order of. This is the vendor's name who's receiving the check. Next, we have the check amount, where you can enter the dollar amount and the numerical description will automatically populate. From here, we can choose a category. We can click on this down arrow here to see a list of all available categories. The ANC expenses are assigned to a budget category, which reflects the ANC's spending priorities. From here, we can attach receipts and supporting documents by clicking on this box to the right, or you can drag and drop a file. Files that are uploaded with a transaction are automatically saved in the register. And once you're done entering in your check, you can click the Submit button here at the bottom. Next, let's go to the debit card module in the QFR system by clicking on this icon at the top right of the screen. This is where we can add transactions made by debit card. The software automatically generates a debit card transaction number. Beginning in fiscal year 2025, ANCs will be able to conduct ACH and EFT transactions. Those transactions should be recorded in the debit card module. Here's what you're going to need to complete a debit card or ACH transaction. At the top, we have the field asking, is this an approved budget expense? This is a required field. ANC law requires all expenses to be approved in a public meeting. One method of approving the ANC expenses is through the annual budget. Another method is to approve an expense in a public meeting. If an expense is approved in the annual budget, we can click on Yes. If an expense is not approved in the annual budget, but was approved at a public meeting, we can answer No. Then, indicate the date of the meeting when the expense was approved. When you click on the date field, it will automatically open up a calendar where you can select the date. Let's click off of that since we're set. Next, we have transaction date. Use the date written on the purchase receipt. Once the date is entered by clicking on this field, the portal automatically sorts the transaction into the appropriate quarter. Because dates are a critical component of the portal, they cannot be changed once entered. The Quarterly Financial Report Administrator in the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions must approve date changes. If you need to request a date change, email oancs@dc.gov. Next, you can enter in the name of the payee. For the amount, enter the dollar amount of the transaction, and from here, you can choose a category from the drop-down. The ANC expenses are assigned to a budget category, which reflects the ANC's spending priorities. Once you have these filled out, you can click Submit, and the transaction will be saved in the portal. Next, let's go to the Fees module, which you can get to by clicking on Fees at the top right of the QFR website. Bank fees are added in the Fees module. The fees applicable in this module are bank fees, stop payment fees, or fees to purchase new checks. First, we have the date that you are going to take from the bank statement for the bank fee. Payee is going to be the name of the bank. The amount is going to be the dollar amount of the transaction. And from here, you can see that we have category. From here, we can choose a category. The category codes are pre-assigned and limited to bank fees, stop payment order fees, purchase checks, and other. Once you're finished, you can click Submit, and the transaction will be saved in the portal. Next, let's talk about the Receipts module. You can get to it by clicking on the Receipt button at the top right of the QFR portal. The Receipts module is where any funds the ANC receives should be posted. The ANC receives funds from DC government allotments, interest from interest-bearing checking accounts, refunds from product returns, and refunds from unspent grant funds. The deposit date is the date indicated on the bank statement. The payor is the DC government. The amount is the amount of the deposit. And the category is DA for district allotment. DI is for an interest payment. DO is deposit other and indicates a refund or return of unused funds. So let's go through how we can fill this out. So for the date, I am just going to use today's date. Payor is the DC government. Amount, I'm just going to put in a number just for demonstration. Category, we're just going to choose district allotment. And from here, let's upload a file. So I'm going to click on this icon here, drag and drop file here, or click to upload. And then I have a file that we can use. And just like that, my file has been uploaded. And now I can submit this item. Checking your work. Before generating the QFR, you must account for all transactions during the quarter. This includes checks written in the checkbook, as well as transactions that appear on the bank statements. Using the checkbook and the bank statements, you will reconcile the check register. A bank reconciliation involves comparing the ANC's check register with the bank statements to ensure that both figures match. This helps identify discrepancies, such as outstanding checks, deposits in transit, or errors. By following these steps carefully, you can ensure that your financial records accurately reflect all ANC transactions. Let's reconcile ANC 9A's fiscal year 2024 Q1 quarterly financial report. First, we're going to gather the required documents. Bank statement. Have copies of the bank statements and canceled checks for the period you are reconciling. In our example, we will use the January 2024 bank statement. Checkbook. Have your checkbook handy, especially if you have written voided checks. Once you've logged in to the QFR portal, make sure that you're set to Q1 of 2024 in the Quarter Navigator at the very top center of the screen, and then select the checking link on the left. From here, we're going to uncheck the box next to Only Selected Quarter. From here, we're going to locate the column labeled Bank Balance almost all the way on the right. And then we're going to locate the last transaction in December. So if we scroll down just a little bit, you'll see that our last transaction was for check 472 from December 19th of 2023 that was made out to Justice Campbell, category 7 for $40. From here, we want to verify that the bank statement's opening balance on the January 2024 statement matches the ending bank balance in the QFR portal check register. In our example, the opening balance on the January 2024 bank statement is $46,198.25. And so if we go back into the QFR and then we look for our last transaction here, you'll see here that those numbers match. If they don't match, you must identify the discrepancy, such as errors carried over from a previous reconciliation. If you have trouble reconciling those numbers, please contact the QFR administrator immediately for help. Next, you need to check off matching transactions. For deposits, we need to compare the deposits in the bank statement with those on the check register on the QFR. Depository receipts include district allotments, interest from interest-bearing checking accounts, and deposit other. Deposit others are refunds from purchases or the return of unused funds. Check off those matching transactions all the way on the left on these checkboxes. Withdrawals and checks. Compare the debit card or ACH transactions, bank fees, and checks presented for payment in the bank statement with those in your check register. Again, check off the matching transactions using these checkboxes all the way on the left. And so if we go to our bank statement, you'll see that there was a transaction for a Zoom subscription that was posted on January 5th of 2024. To indicate that it has cleared, we're going to go back to the QFR, and then we're going to make sure that it is checked off here, and which it is. If the transaction is not listed in the check register, you must add it. After adding it, check the box to indicate that it has cleared. The next transaction we will clear from the bank statement is check 470. So from here, we can locate check 470 on the check register, which is right here. And we want to click on the checkbox to the left of 470 to indicate that this transaction has cleared the bank. The next step is to identify and list outstanding items. Outstanding checks. Identify checks recorded in your checkbook but not in the QFR portal check register including voided checks. When you find those occurrences, you must add them to the portal. Just as a reminder, we record checks in the check register on the day they are written, not when the check clears the bank. The next step is handling checks that have not cleared. Review the check register for checks that still need to clear the bank. Checks that have not cleared the bank within 90 days of being written require a stop payment order so they can be canceled. You must contact the bank to request a stop payment order. Once the stop payment order has been issued, you may void or reverse the transaction in the check register. Check out the instructions to void or reverse a transaction in this video. Next, we need to confirm the ending balance. When all transactions are entered into the check register, the final step is to review the ending bank balance. Locate the ending bank balance in the check register. In our example, is $46,088.90. So we can see that here, right as the last transaction. So we need to compare the ending bank balance in the register with the ending balance on the bank statement. In our example, the ending balance on the bank statement is $46,088.90. So you'll see that the numbers match on our bank statement and the QFR portal. If they don't, double check your work for errors. You will repeat the reconciliation each month until you are ready to generate the QFR. Now you may be wondering, why is the report balance different from the bank balance? The quarterly financial report records all of the ANC's financial transactions, while the bank statement records transactions presented to the bank for payment. It's great when those balances match at the end of the month, but it's not necessary. When the report balance matches the bank balance, it means that every check written and every electronic transaction recorded cleared the bank in the same month. However, if the balances don't match, that doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. It means that there are transactions that have not cleared the bank. This is a common occurrence. When checks have not cleared the bank, it is your responsibility to dispose of them. Contact the payee and ask if the check was received. If it hasn't been received, you must request a stop payment order to cancel it. To do that, review the steps for handling checks that have not cleared. Now that we have accounted for all of the ANC's transactions, we are ready to generate the report. Next, let's talk about generating the quarterly financial report. Once you've entered all your transactions, we can now generate the quarterly financial report. On the left side menu here, we're going to click on Reports and then select a link to the quarterly financial report. One thing that's important to ensure is that the quarter navigator is set to the quarter and fiscal year of the report that you want to generate. You'll find that at the very top center of the website. Next, let's talk about uploading documents by choosing this upload option on the left. DC Official Code 1-309.13 requires that ANCs provide a signed quarterly report, bank statements, copies of canceled checks, the minutes approving all financial transactions, invoices and receipts, and contracts of all transactions, along with the required grant documents. The required grant documents are the grant application, the grant closeout report prepared by the grantee, the minutes approving the grant, and all invoices and receipts for items purchased with grant funds. You can upload a document to the portal by selecting Add File and then attaching your file from here. You can either click in this gray box and then a window will pop up where you can choose the location of your file, or we can also go directly to that file in our Explorer. And from here, I can simply drag and drop it in. Now, one thing I do want to point out is the way that this file is named. You'll notice that it begins with my ANC, in this case 9A. The second thing is check, or it could be a bank statement, but it's what the file it is. And then we have a underscore followed by a little bit more description of what the file is. In this case, it could be a bill for a Zoom usage. You'll see here under upload, we have bank statements for checking, bank statements for savings, canceled checks, grant documents, minutes, the quarterly financial report, and supporting documents. So you can put the necessary documents in each of these different sections month by month. That's all you need to know about navigating the quarterly financial report portal. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. Thanks for watching.